Hey, everyone. Welcome to the security track related to the NGINX. It will be only 20 minutes talk, and now we have a little bit. OK, so it will be very fast. So what is the agenda for this talk? We will talk about how you can use NGINX to mitigate OWASP top 10 attacks on your apps and applications and APIs, how to stop malicious bots which try to scrap your website, and also how to deal with the denial of service attacks. Of course, I'm speaking about the application layer only. So who am I? My name is Stepan, and I'm actually one of the co-founders of Wallarm. So we are proud to sponsor this conference, and we actually are partners with the NGINX. So we are great fans of NGINX, as you are. Why NGINX? So NGINX is just a perfect spot where you can analyze your requests, because all the requests to your apps and APIs, they are already proxified through these NGINX instances. So you can just plug in special modules to these NGINX instances and get additional analytics, additional protection. So it's just a perfect spot. And usually, all those machines, they have some capacity to add these modules. So this is just how you can use it. So you see there's NGINX instances, and you can plug in, for example, a WAF module inside. So that easy. So first of all, how to deal with the OWASP top 10 attacks. And the obvious answer here is to use WAF application firewall, WAF. And the first tip is to use mod security. So it's like the most popular open source web application firewall with a great community, and I'm a great fan of mod security. So it works. It supports the so-called virtual patches. So when you know that there is a vulnerability somewhere, you can create a virtual patch and block it. And it's incredibly customizable. So and it's very easy to turn on. So you just use one directive in your NGINX config file, which is called mod security enabled, and instantly get the analysis for necessary location. So it's very good. Mod security is a signature-based web application firewall. What does it mean? You have signatures, so-called GASPs. It looks like this. This is an example of a virtual patch for a shell shock vulnerability. So we just look for some pattern in the request, and if we see it, we block it. In some cases, regular expressions are more complicated. This is the thing you need to keep in mind when you want to start using mod security, because you will deal with this a lot. Because otherwise, if you don't tune these security rules, if you don't tune the signatures, you will get a lot of false positives. So you need to be ready to dedicate some time to tune the security rules. Otherwise, you will have a lot of false positives, and mod security will break your application, and nobody wants it. The best practice for what we see among our customers as well, to use public rule sets for monitoring at the beginning, and then create specific rules for your application manually, and to use them in the blocking mode. And in many cases, these rules which are used in the blocking mode, they are quite limited. So you can write a lot of rules, actually, so it's very customizable. For example, you can look for etc password in the request and trigger when there is a content like etc password in response with this regular expression. So it's very customizable. I don't want to dig deeper because we have only 20 minutes. What I recommend to you is to read this book by Ivan Ristich, which is called Mod Security Handbook. The new release of this book was published, I think, in July. So it covers all the new features of mod security now. This is great. Another tip is to use naxsi. And what is naxsi? Naxsi is another open source web application firewall, and it was specifically built for NGINX by a guy whose name is Thibaut Kochlin. He's a French guy. The interesting part about naxsi is that it doesn't use signatures. It looks for some dangerous characters and expressions. So it uses a kind of simple subset of scoring rules. Every request is scored. So, for example, naxsi is looking for SQL operators inside or angle brackets, that kind of stuff. So if there is a request scoring more than a certain threshold, it just blocks the request. Unfortunately, it still requires some tuning because these rules are quite complicated, and in many cases you will have a lot of false positives. So the best part here is that you can run a special learning script, which is called NX-util, which is a part of the naxsi, and create a so-called white list. So it will inspect the traffic and will create a white list for your application. And there are predefined rule sets created for WordPress and other popular tools tools. So naxsi is good. It also has a great community. You can try to use it. And I think if you don't update your application a lot, it can be an option for you. Otherwise, be ready to run this learning phase, this whitelisting all the time with all the major release of your software. And it also can be connected to Kibana and Elastic for sure. Another tip is to try to use the commercial NG-WAF. So there are a couple of the options now. For example, there is a Wallarm, which I'm presenting, and Signal Sciences, the guys are also here. So there are a bunch of commercial tools which use NGINX as a platform for its security. What we're doing in Wallarm, it will be very fast. It's a kind of adaptive security platform. So we are in module for the NGINX and NGINX Plus. So we intercept all the requests inside. And then we apply machine learning to create a profile of the app or API you have, and use this profile to create a security rule specifically for your application. And it happens all the time. So in this case, we can guarantee that you will have almost zero level of false positives. So it's very important. We also have an active threat verification, so we can check the malicious payload we detected in the attacks and replay them against your app or staging environment of the app to see if any of these attacks are really dangerous for you, if any of these attacks are exposing vulnerabilities. So this is just a screenshot of how our application profile looks like. We are releasing this now. This is a screenshot how we show you the information about the malicious request, about the attacks. And attack usually consists of multiple requests, so we try to figure out which of the requests are connected to each other. And the best part here is that we show attacks, but also we show incidents. So incident is the situation when we know exactly that somebody is exploiting security issue in your product. So it's a very serious situation. Attacks, everybody has a lot of attacks. You don't need to care about them a lot. Incident is what you need to care about. And we know about this incident because of this threat verification module. When we detect vulnerability, we also report to you about it, saying, hey guys, you have SQL injection here, here's how we can fix it. So it's not only WAF, it's much more. It's a security platform which actually can help to make your apps more secure. I will be on the booth today, so I can answer all the questions about the product as well. And specifically about our architecture, because we use cloud for machine learning stuff and still analyze all the requests locally on-prem with the NGINX module. So it's a very interesting approach how to use machine learning, but not run machine learning right on the NGINX instances. Another tip is to use the tool which is called repsheet. It's also a NGINX module, so it's a kind of behavioral-based security. So what is the idea here? You probably have different sources of the data from your internal anti-fraud team or from the GeoIP or some other source of information like headers, alerts from the mod security or any other WAF, some external feed. So the basic idea about the repsheet is to get all this data, correlate it, and block the malfactors right on the NGINX layer. So that's why repsheet has this webserver module. So it's actually very pluggable to the NGINX, and you can use multiple sources of data to block the malicious requests, which is cool. It was originally created by Aaron Bedra, and I think he had a talk 2 years ago at the NGINX conference, so you can take a look at it. Probably there is a record of it. This kind of architecture of the repsheet. You see that there is web server, it is NGINX, there is a mod security, which is an example of WAF, some GeoIP module, and there is a repsheet, which can use all the data from the Redis database to block the requests based on some certain parameters. This could be useful, but it definitely requires some modification to be deployed in your infrastructure. The tip number 5, and this is a good new NGINX feature, probably heard about it today. This is called mirroring. So what is the idea here? Unfortunately, in many cases, what we see, people are afraid to use additional modules in production on the NGINX instances because of the different reasons. And it's even a problem to run a POC, a pilot. So for these purposes, you can use a request mirroring feature now and copy every request to an additional backend and analyze it in additional backend in async mode. So this is cool because you can do anything you want on a dedicated NGINX machine with a 100% guarantee that it will not affect the production of your main application. So it's very cool. It's very easy to set up as well. So there is a mirror directive now, so you can just use it mirror and to specify a location where you want to send all the requests. It's very cool, and we are proud that we helped NGINX team to implement this thing, because a lot of our customers ask us about this. The next chapter is about DDoS and bots, actually. Frankly speaking, it's very hard to mitigate it by your own. So like in many, bots are evolving, they are becoming more sophisticated, but still you have some things that you can do. And speaking about bots, we are speaking about the mitigating DDoS attacks, site scraping, API abuse, stop brute force, deer busting, that kind of attacks. So first of all, you can use a so-called test cookie module. So the basic idea here is that a lot of bots are still very simple. They don't support cookies, they don't support redirects, they don't support JavaScript, so you can run a lot of checks and figure out if the client doesn't support JavaScript, it's probably a bot, and we can block it. So this is what test cookie does, actually. So it has a variety of checks. So for example, to check if client supports cookies, supports HTTP redirect, or supports JavaScript. So it's very simple to use. And I know a lot of companies which actually use test cookie in production. So it's production ready. What is bad here is that you can't run this test cookie module for the APIs, because obviously you can't run these JavaScript tasks or cookie tasks for API backends. So this is a kind of limitation for this. You also need to be careful, because you can block the good bots as well, for example, Google bots. So, but the approach is good, and in many cases you can take the source code of this test cookie module and implement it, for example, in Lua with your own logic. So I know some people that that did it as well. The next thing is that you now can use all the capabilities of the neural network frameworks and machine learning frameworks to identify malicious bots in your log files. It's not that difficult, because if you, like in many cases, when you open your access log and just look through them by your eyes, like in many cases you can distinguish which of the requests are good and which of them are not. And in many cases it can, like you can run a machine learning script to figure out which requests are bad requests. There is a good proof of concept by Alexey Ivanov, the source code on the GitHub, just to show how easy you can create a neural network and apply it to the access log to find out the bots. But of course, for training purposes, for training the neural network, you need some access log for good traffic. So this is a kind of limitation. But nowadays, there are so many frameworks. Even AWS provides a lot of capabilities for machine learning, so you can use it as well. In many cases, when you need to deal with the DDoS, you still need to analyze these access logs. And here are some tips that can help you. NGINX supports a code 444. When do you need it? The bad guys, they usually try to apply their malicious requests to the most resource-intensive part of the app. In many cases, it's search. So the attacker sends one request, and this one request creates multiple requests to the database. So it's very easy to cause the denial service in many cases. So if there is a problem for you like this, you can do you can temporarily disable. So it's very bad, but like if it's a question of like to make your website and web application available or make it offline, it's better to make offline some particular part of the app. So for example, if you see that the bad guys are applying all their efforts to the search script, you can disable this capability with this 444 code. You just return the 444 for the necessary location. And the good thing here is that NGINX will close the connection and give nothing in response to the attackers. So it's very good. Then, if you know that there are a lot of bad guys who are trying to apply this DDoS attack on this search location, you can grab with this easy script all the all the lines that are all the lines from the log file, and figure out what IP addresses to ban, and to ban them with the ipset tool. So it's a very helpful, like a kind of emergency when you see that somebody is like attacking you at some particular location. So this can help you as well. GeoIP banning. Of course, if you know that you don't want traffic for some particular countries, you can use GeoIP as well. So there is a special module for this, a HTTP GeoIP module. A lot of companies are using it. The problem is that GeoIP is not accurate in many times, so you need to be very careful with this. It will not help you against sophisticated attacks. For sure, it will not. But to stop some malicious bots, probably it's a good thing to do. You can also block the malicious headers, like user agents, referrers. So there are a bunch of lists of these bad user agents on the GitHub, so you can easily find it. And to block it with the NGINX with a simple line in the NGINX config file. And the last thing, actually, you need to care about the buffers, timeouts, connections. So because every resource has a limit, and the bad guys know it when they apply the DDoS attack. So that's why you need to be you need to set all the buffers, all the timeouts in advance. So there are NGINX has a bunch of directives to limit buffers, like client header buffer size, client body buffer size, and so on. You can also limit timeouts as well, like client header timeout, client body timeout. The good question is how to set up these parameters, and it really depends on your application. It really depends on your API. There are a lot of articles on this topic. I can't recommend any particular ones, so it's all about the experiment. You need to set some value for these parameters, then run the benchmarks and see how your application responds. If it works, just increase the limits, maybe 2x, and try these benchmarks again and see how your application responds after that. So it's always about like playing with this parameter for every particular application you have. But you need to do this. It's not only the protection. It's from the point of view of just the performance of your applications. The last part from me today is that we will have a party at 7 p.m. today. It's only 3 blocks from the conference. It will be at 7 p.m. There is a link on the bottom there. Please sign up and come just to share drinks with us. Everybody is welcome. Just to recap, so what you can do, you can run open source WAFs like mod security or naxsi to block and mitigate most of the OWASP top 10 attacks, like SQL injections, cross-site scripting, XXC. In many cases, mod security can help against DDoS attacks as well. You can use some commercial tools if you have budgets for that. And in many cases, it's much more easy to use them, and they require much less efforts from your end. You can use test cookie module to identify bots. So it's a very basic script, but it's very helpful for you to mitigate most of the malicious bots. But be careful, because you can block the good bots like Google, and you can't use it with the API gateways. There is a repsheet. If you have an anti-fraud team inside your company, or you have any additional external feeds of the information which you can use to identify malfactors, you can use repsheet and block these malfactors right on the NGINX layer. There is access log, and like everybody knows what is access log, but in many cases it can be very helpful for identify malicious requests. And nowadays, with all these frameworks for machine learning and neural networks, you can run a lot of stuff right on the access log and get a lot of results out of there. And of course, you need to set up all the buffers, all the timeouts, and connections. So there are a bunch of the special directives in the NGINX, so you can do it pretty easily, but it requires some experiments. So it's everything from my end today. Welcome to the party. I will be on the Wallarm booth for the whole day, so come and talk about the any security-related topics. We have some white hat hackers there as well, so we can answer all the questions, even not related to the NGINX. And just welcome, and thank you. By the way, any questions? I have 40 seconds left. Yeah. Uh, this is a good question for the NGINX team as well. So let me show you. So you can use this mirror directive, and it will copy the request to the additional backend. I don't know exactly what is the difference, so there are NGINX guys here. But what I need to mention here is that this has a limitation. The limitation is that this separate machine, where all the mirror requests will be analyzed, they will analyze only requests. There will be no responses for the application. So it's from the point of view of protection, it's a very serious limitation, because when WAF can't analyze the application response, it's a kind of limited. So you need to keep in mind that it provides limited capabilities for you. Yeah, so time's over. But I'm here. Come and talk with me. Thank you.